Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of How to Rebel.
So, economically, that's a big thing for me right now because economically, as much as I feel like I have the freedom to do what I want, I still don't have control over what I think is mine. As in, I looked at it and I was like, actually, I'm forced to spend my money from the same people who give it to me the entire time. So I'm giving back their money that they give me for all this time that I spent, my 160 hours in a month that I give to someone who gives me money that I give right back to them.
So we had a conversation about this the other night when we were putting the topics together, and we were like, okay, how do we're talking about how to rebel on a personal level. How do we create that change systemically? How do we rebel systemically? And I think one of the very important ways was money. And understanding how money flows in the system. And what you said just simplified it very easily. The same people who pay you are the same people you buy from. And the way money bleeds out of the system is they pay you a little, you spend a lot. And they pay you a little and you spend a lot. And then wealth gets leaked out of the system to one place continuously. And so one of the ways we need to rebel is by looking at where we spend our money. The money that you get is fine, but where you put it back is everything.
Yes.
Are you putting it into
Yes.
businesses who pay their staff fairly? Are you putting it into businesses who care about the environment? Are you putting it into businesses who actually value the employees and give them free time and give them leave? Like, where's your money going? Because your money grows another business. What kind of business are you growing with your money? And I'm not saying it's easy to find these places because, South Africa makes
Yeah.
sure of keeping the
But
good
it's easy
businesses
for you to
small.
get caught up in the wrong places. Not the wrong, like to me, I now say it's wrong. But as an example, when I look at my life and I can look at where I keep my money, right? Who I pay for things like my basic adulting, where I buy my food.
Like
And then-
even just there, like if you just pause there, like where you keep your money.
I was about
like,
to say,
name
like,
an ethical bank, name a good
That's
bank.
it.
But again,
right
like,
now, who's
I'm
not racist?
Also,
That's
if I go and find out who owns the bank, then I get particularly mislooked because what happens is I go and I have a little broad spectrum and I go where I keep my money, where I buy my food, the clothing that I get, and then things like basic things like my medical aid and retirement fund or annuities. If I have a look at it, there's probably like 3 people who get all my money right back.
Yep.
If I link up the people who own the bank and the food places, it's likely all the same. But don't even go into my annuities and the retirement funds.
Yeah.
That and the bank is like, it's all the same little pockets.
Pockets.
So all I'm doing is just putting money back into the same pockets, and that's how I feel the entire time.
Yep.
Trying to navigate my way as an adult. I'm like, how am I getting myself out of these systems when I'm constantly contributing towards them? How do I get to a point where I go, actually, I have more freedom over it because I can choose.
Yeah. We're definitely getting into the bigger how to rebel now.
Yes.
You know, we're not talking.
Yes, but
We're not-
it's life. It impacts everything that I do. When I think about it, it's not in the small things. It's not just in my own sort of expressions. It's also in things like my life in general. How do I contribute, and what is it that I actually am doing with it? I'm really just empowering people who are oppressing me, in essence. And I think I got a quiet job to do that. But when I look at it, I'm like, I'm not working for myself here.
Yeah.
I'm not even working for my community. I'm working for people who sit there and just like,
Yeah.
But that's the thing. No one really is working for themselves, working to survive, but we're not the beneficiaries of where our efforts go.
how do we change that though? Where do I start to go, okay, actually, this bank is not it.
Okay.
This institution is not it. Then what? What are the smaller ways of how I do that and start unraveling myself out of a system that I feel very trapped in?
So just before that, I do want to, because I know there are people who are going to be watching this who are pro-capitalism. Can we pause quickly? So just before we get to that, I wanted to, because I know some people are going to be pro-capitalism watching this, and the thing is, capitalism always talks about the free market and about there being competition. And because there's competition, people compete for price for the consumer, but they don't finish the thought. What happens when the one company wins?
Right.
And then
Monopoly.
they win more of the market share and more of the market share and more of the market share. And now, because of economies of scale, they have the best prices and they employ most of the people in that sector. So now they make the prices and they employ everybody who's making it. And all the equipment goes to them, or enough of them. And whenever there's competition, they buy up the competition or they price the competition out. So the thing about capitalism is when you finish the thought, it ends up in monopoly or oligopoly at least, which we have the same banks, we have the same
Phone network guys.
phone networks, we have the same big bakery companies, we have the same big flour companies, we have the same big clothing retailers with the same prices. So we don't have the diversity and
Free
competition that
market.
capitalism pretends to say it as, because nobody finishes the thought. And so
I also, for anybody who is watching, just want to ask a question.
Okay.
Is like, if, or at least for the pro-capitalists, those specifically for them, if it is working so well and you think that it's working so well, why does it need a bailout every other decade or so?
Bailout alone.
Can we just, if we have a look at like the past 50 years, why is it that it needs a bailout every couple of years? Because doesn't it get to that point where it goes like, and then,
because capitalism is always made to self-destruct. Like
The thing about it is that it's unsustainable because
Yeah.
it needs lack.
when you play the game Monopoly, somebody wins and then you pack the game away and you have to start over because there's no point in playing anymore. Somebody has everything. And what you've now effectively done is the only way you continue that is you now wage slave. Because one person owns everything. If I have everything, I tell you how much I can give you. And I determine the prices. Because I own everything on the board.
ultimate power.
And so with colonization, there's a group of people that own everything on the board.
Still.
And what happens is every now and then they get carried away and they push down too hard on the people. And then there's a rebellion. And then they give them some breadcrumbs. And then it starts all over again. So the reason that capitalism always needs a bailout is because people's greed goes so unchecked. It goes so rampant that it needs an occasional reset. But they don't redistribute everything on the board. They just hand out some crumbs.
The thing is, I see capitalism like that way and be like, it's unsustainable, right?
Right.
But for me, I think a system that really requires the dehumanization of majority of the people that participate is not a functional system.
I'm so glad you used the term dehumanization because capitalism is inhumane.
It is.
Because you commoditize clothing, food,
Human rights.
housing, healthcare, and education.
Safety.
Human rights.
It's like, okay,
Did you put safety in there?
Nope.
well, I mean, when you
put
take those
safety
things
in
away from
beauty?
people, but yes, you
but
commoditize safety as well. Yeah.
Safety's been commoditized now.
Yeah.
If you have a look at the sectors.
Everything is for sale.
Exactly.
So,
I don't think we're ready for that
this
topic,
is going to
guys.
spark such a big conversation, and I want to try and like round us off. But when we're looking at big systemic change, we have to look at where we're spending our money because we live in a system that thrives off money. And the reason I was bringing capitalism in is because, like you said, you're getting your money and giving your money to the same people month in, month out. And so, yeah,
is theirs.
exactly.
It's their money the whole time.
Always.
That's how I feel.
It's never
You know,
been
when
yours.
when I realized that,
It's
when I
never
got to
even
that
been
realization, I felt so gaslit. I felt like I had worked to a point where I have earned my freedom and I can do with my money what I want. But when I realized what that was, I was literally exchanging my time for money that I had to give back to somebody else. And it was a very gaslighting experience.
So
And
the
then they put
bottom,
inflation and price on it and when you get it back. Bottom line?
the
Sorry.
bottom, I think I'm just trying to get this number out there. The bottom 90% of the population are living on 16% of the wealth. So that means like the top between 10 and 15%, they have about 40, like 84, 80, yeah, about 84% of the wealth. So when when people make that statement like, well, you can't take the money from the rich and give it to the poor and then think everybody's
Yes, you
gonna
can.
yes,
You literally
yes,
can.
yes.
They just don't want to.
You have no idea how
They
much
don't
money
want
people
to.
have
They're
in their
little-
accounts.
Do that gold star
Actually.
explanation thing with the wealth, where they just do that.
Oh, you wanted to
Do that gold star explanation of the wealth,
Okay.
because that's what they're doing, and we are sitting here thinking the money
Yeah.
is ours, that they are eating it, keeping it, gatekeeping
Okay.
it, when they're creating funds for themselves, for each other, and awarding each other assets to keep this thing.
mind-fuck,
It
So,
is.
okay, so this is what Gugu's talking about. So we were live one day and we were talking about billionaires, and people were talking about the fact that like billionaires don't work harder than everybody else, because if they worked that hard, they would have had to work X amount of hours, X amount of days, yada yada yada. And I was like, that's true, but being a billionaire is an ascribed value. So I was saying it in terms of, look at, if you work, you get gold stars. And the more you work, the more you get rewarded with these gold stars. But the way a billionaire makes money is they are in control of the gold star factory. And because they dominate who gets the gold stars, they don't really have as many gold stars or billions as they say they do. That's just the value that they ascribe to what they can do. So the amount of people they control, the amount of property they own, the amount of infrastructure they manage. So no billionaire has a billion in their account. No billionaire has a billion anywhere like that you can see
So it's
and
like
touch.
when Elon Musk wanted to buy Twitter and they were like, he's worth this much. But he had to go borrow money to do it because
So-
he doesn't actually have the money that he's
capital.
worth.
That's the key term, that you are worth. And so the world is run by people, our country is run by people who ascribe value. I'll give you the gold stars. So when we think about systemic change, we need to let go of thinking of how many gold stars can I accumulate and then I can
Yes.
change the system. Like, it's not going to happen.
We need to remove the gold stars from them. There must be
Exactly.
no.
The
Mina,
reason
I'll go
why-
as far as to say that I don't see our freedom in the auspices of any current institution. I am very I'm
So this is where this deep-rooted hatred for socialism comes from. Because socialism says that the people, socialism, capitalism, communism is about means of production. It's not about your house, it's not about your shoes and your clothes. Socialism, capitalism, communism is about who owns the factory that everybody works in. Because does the government own the factory? Do they determine how much everybody gets paid? Does the owner, the investor, does he own the factory? Does he determine how much everyone gets paid? That's capitalism. Or do the people own it and they determine how much everybody gets paid? That's socialism. Now, socialism scares the pants off everybody because you can't manipulate power like you do in capitalism with the private owner,
Yeah.
or like you do in communism with the government. Because when you collectively run things as a people get so scared. They're like, oh, the socialist, Marxist, whatever. I'm like, listen, you can call it the lollipop methodology for all I care. As long as people control the things that they work for and they run,
Yes.
I'm chilled. Because if everybody owns the farm, right? Everybody's going to make sure that everybody on the farm gets the food. We all own this. We all get access to the farm. But as soon as one or the other controls it, people get scared.
it's the exclusivity of it all.
So we're talking about banks and who owns what and how, if the banks are ethical, if the bread companies are ethical, if the clothing companies are ethical. If it is owned by the people have a vested interest in doing what's right.
Yes.
So that big, bad systemic change that we're looking at starts with us seeing how messed up the system is.
Yeah.
I do not believe it comes from having a black-owned bank.
No.
Or having a black-owned...
No.
Black capitalism is not black excellence.
I don't-
No.
Say that again.
Black capitalism is not black excellence.
One more time.
Aye.
Church thing was-
Power.
But and this is why I love listening to you and Gugu speak about your respective industries, because I see it from a business side, you see it from a tech side, Gugu sees how this can be organized and run from a legal side and from a social side a lot of the time, honestly. And it's just like, it's gonna take all of us to see it and understand it, because it's gonna take all of us to run it.
I think the thing that when I comprehended it, it slapped me so hard in between my eyes because ultimately at least all I ever wanted was freedom,
Yeah.
right?
How rebellious of you.
Dare you?
And I mean that in every facet of my life, right? The freedom to express myself the way I want to, the freedom to pretty much live my life in the way that I want to. The one thing to me that is important about it always is if I'm not harmful to anyone, I should be able to do whatever it is that I want to do. And so should every other human being as well, right? As long as I'm not harmful to anyone else. When it hit me that actually what you perceive as freedom is not. All it is a way in which you think you are maneuvering and that you think you are free, but you are really just caught up in a system that is designed for you to go a specific way. When I realized that, I felt deep in my adulthood like so much of my life was a lie.
Bamboozled, hoodwinked, and led
Bruh,
astray.
I was so mad. For me, it was when
They
it
told me
crossed-
that like getting a desk job was the best thing in the world and that trade jobs are absolute cuck. Do you know how stupid that is?
I was
Do you
given this
know, Darren, how
profession.
dumb it is that we now aren't able to do simple things like grow our own food?
When it
Do
was
you know
looked down
how
on.
dumb
That-
it is that all I've wanted to do for the past 2 years, I'm not lying to you, is build myself a wooden cabinet, but I can't. It's a very simple cabinet that I wanted. My father used to be able to, not used to, but he still does. If my dad wants something, he go build it for him now. He will go and get the steel and weld it. He will go get the wood and go, he will make his thing now. My mother hates it, but my father, I wish I had the capability to be that self-sustaining where I can grow my food. I can make myself a wooden thing there if I want to and go sand it down. And the thing is, the wild thing is I've seen this done. I know exactly how to do it, right? But we don't, we stuck nose ambag is manual work.
So
That's
you
for
see,
peasants. You don't do
must-
that.
In order for a system like this to work, you must take self-sustaining values like that away from people. You have to give value to people who make more money. So people who contribute to the perpetuation of a system. If you are in finance, if you are in investing, you don't do any actual, like investors don't build or create anything. Not anything real or tangible, right? But because they perpetuate the system, and I'm saying this as a trader, right? Because they perpetuate the system, they then add value to the system. Like, oh, you make money? We're gonna reward you with more money so other people want to make more money.
Okay.
Oh, you create independence. No.
That's not what we
You a farm laborer? You don't create money. You just create real food for us to survive. How menial of you. You work in a mine. You take metal for all the tools we eat. That's very low level.
That time, it is one of the high risk job. Like, do you know
Yeah.
the risk
So-
of going into the core of the earth?
So we haven't even gotten
people
into,
think
like-
in our society that it is better to be able to go buy pretty lettuce from Woolies than being able to go to your garden and pick your pretty lettuce yourself.
Now, this is why I lose my mind when people talk about low skilled and high skilled. Because skill, like when we talk about skill, we immediately talking about what contributes more to capitalism.
Yes.
Like, oh, you're a mine worker, low skilled. Oh, you're an investor, high
High
skilled.
skilled.
But, my friend,
Who's the one? That's why, guys, my plan. It must start at the bottom.
So on sort of the little bits and the big bits and
Let's wrap it up.
the things that
Yeah.
we do, I think ultimately our message is that in some way, shape, or form, we need to find a way for ourselves to not be, caught up,
right?
because the system itself feels like it is this inevitable can that we're kicking down the road, or it's going to be eventually, just like capitalism, something that self-destructs. And honestly, it feels like my life is a long tale of self-destruction, but this is a design that's been put out for me to self-destruct myself. And the more I've come to love myself, the more I've said to myself, you deserve more. I deserve more than how people treat me just because I want to be myself. I deserve more than how people perceive my ambitions because I want to go at it as myself.
Love it.
In my own natural capacity with my hair growing out of my scalp. It was not acceptable. There are still dress code policies in real organizations in South Africa up until 2 years ago, where I had to speak to senior leadership and ask them, why do you have a policy that tells people to comb their hair? I cannot comb my hair in the morning, sir. It is not an instrument that I can pull through these coils and curls. It's not something that is made for me. Meat to you is what you see as a sleek comb. You can see the comb still running through it. To me, that's having little hair on your head.
Exactly. Zero.
You know what I mean? That's the difference between the two for us. But I'm not going to tell you that your hair doesn't look neat because you only have these few strands there and it can only stand in this particular way. That's your hair, my friend. Let it be. You know, but that doesn't mean that you can tell me how mine should be either. Because it's not quite like yours. And in the same way, when it comes to who benefits from what, I just feel like I'm contributing constantly and being forced to contribute to a system that's not actually one that is either supporting, healthy, or a sustainable one for us.
Right.
And that's where my gripe really is, because ultimately I keep that 15, 10% reach the whole time. Doesn't matter how hard I work. It doesn't matter how much I think I'm doing for my community and how much representation I'm putting out there by being this, what. At the end of the day, when you look down to it, you go check, what have you done? Oh, if I look at it, my annual package is above a bar. Great. Who got your money back? That's what makes me feel like,
The same person still makes the gold stars.
Exactly.
And then the
So
other year.
it's like, for us to get ourselves out of that, how do we do that? It's to start thinking of ways and having an everyday approach. I've changed a lot of businesses I support, as an example, and I just won't go back. And it's not for this way or another way. The second I find an alternative where I am not funneling money into the same people, I support that alternative, and I support it with grace and at full price, guys. Stop asking us and stop asking people who look like us to discount things. I support it at full price, and I somewhat tip you lekker afterwards also. If the establishment is a local establishment run by local people is lekker.
We tip.
I do it extra. Why? Because I feel good knowing that where my money now goes, right, is somewhere where someone else is going to benefit from it as well. And that to me feels a whole lot better than going to some brand name thing that I don't even know who the owner is of it, but I know that bra is like that. So then, you know, it's a different story to me. But ultimately, it's about being freer to be ourselves, but also not realizing how these systems confine us and keep us in this rat race to constantly have what you consider as gold stars in your life. But remove that go-go and you realize that they've actually left you with nothing, not your language, not your culture, not your ability to be yourself and express yourself freely, to actually have and earn your own time, because that's what this money is to me. It's time. The older I am, the less I want to work. Not because I don't want to work anymore, but because I see more value in my time. And I actually want to do other things with that time. I want to explore things that I don't know. I want
How
to
dare you?
Exactly. So to me now, I'm like, no, but I actually don't want
The
to work so much.
audacity of
I
you.
don't do those 16 hours that people thought were commitment to your work anymore. So as a person trying to find my own freedom and flexibility, to me that's important now. My time. Don't tell me I'm not hardworking because I don't want to work over the time that you set out for me. This is mine. It's mine. It's mine.
And even the concept of hard work is, for me, this entire... No, I don't mean it in the sense like there must be no hard work. I feel like the way hard work is defined is that it must be useful and useful to those that need your labor, not necessarily about the actual skills and the utilization thereof. For me, this thing fell apart when I had to look at the way capitalism worked and the way that colonialism worked, and I realized that they just updated the format and ran the same program, because there's still an oppressed, enslaved class that has to supply labor at ridiculous amounts that are cheap that they can't live off of.
The nice term is the working class.
Yes,
The working
I'm not
class.
even there. I'm at the poor. I'm at the
Well,
poor.
it
It's them
translates
they're
into the same
abusing.
thing.
Yeah. Then there's the free blacks. The class that can participate.
Even that was banned. Things like non-participation when it comes to work was a big thing because there's, for example, instances like
You mean the
Zara.
people that comes by all day? Oh, not the, oh, sorry.
So people like for example, Zara van Kaap, right?
Yes.
The story of her is that she pretty much killed herself, right, in a protest to being a slave.
Right.
And what they did is they desecrated her body. They literally put it up, hung it up for the entire community.
Can you say that name again?
Zara van Kaap.
Okay.
A lot of her things are up in the Van Kaap room in the slave lodge in town. The slave lodge is still in town, guys.
Yeah,
it's still
by the
there.
free market, we
go
all
make
go
a
shop
turn
at.
there. You'll be able to see there's
Next to
quite a
the
bit of history there.
VOC
Right.
Company
Gardens.
Gardens. And right outside there's busts of people. But anyway,
You know what? I actually
point I
wanted
was
to
gonna
say the
make
one
is
thing
that-
as a Joburger that really shocked me when I landed here was the apartheid museum that this province is. An entire.
Rhodes Memorial.
I'm leaving it there.
It's
Ah,
called,
wow.
it's we call it the Company Gardens, but that company is short for the VOC Company Gardens, and it's still called the VOC Company Gardens. This is
Sorry, I just
this
got
is
an
a
eye.
person
Anyway.
living in
And,
South
Ro-
Africa.
and
But
Rose,
anyway,
the
so
still is in the middle there.
so to roll us over, what I was also trying to say is like the non-participation was also seen as rebellious,
Yeah.
and that was not only banned, but people were made very horrible examples of as well. Like they literally leave your body up there to rot for a month on end, just to show people how unacceptable it is. And the truth is that 15 to 20% of all slaves actually kill themselves in as a way of rebelling or protesting against being slaves.
Yeah.
A lot of them mutilated their bodies as well as a way of protest and rebelling against being slaves. It's not like people were just like, we're going along with
Yeah.
it. We'll do it anyway. There's
that we
always
submitted.
been these protests.
People chose death.
Yeah, always.
And all they wanted was their own human rights. And I feel like it's a wild thing when you have to choose survival and your human rights. And we think that this thing is now not something that you have to make a conscious choice of every day. But in reality, even though I would be considered a successful person, I still feel like I don't have the right to say I won't participate, because then I feel like I might die.
Yeah. You threatened with death.
Because
Even
that's just
today,
how it
my
is.
survival hangs at it, because if I don't participate
You
in
die.
being a hard worker, how will I survive?
This is a longer conversation we're going to need to have, but I think we can park it here for now. Thank you very much for sitting and listening to us on episode 2 of How to Rebel. We'll see you all next time. Oh yeah, like and subscribe. No?
Yeah, yes,
clickety
subscribe.
stuff.
Yo,
Let us have all the
like
good
and
dopamines
share.
and stuff and
That
whatever.
stuff, you know, that one. Like
Let
and
us have all
share.
the social chemicals
I'm gonna
we can.
remember. We're gonna remember it one of these days.
What are we gonna remember?
To say
To
like
do
and
say
Oh, like
and
naturally.
just- yeah.
Naturally.
It's gonna end the
At some point.
Like and subscribe.
It'll be like, oh, like and subscribe. You know what to do, y'all.
Yeah.
Must get somebody to pay us, then we're gonna be diligent.
Not us talking about capitalism, but now talking about getting paid. But
That's just how it works.
But also.
it is, but also, but as well, but it is a thing.